Focus Plumbing.
Phil, Wadsworth here. I'm finally ready for you up on the hill.
Great. About time. I'll be right there.
I'm going to bring in my deburring knife just for the general public. Look at that. I suppose we should read the directions on this glue. It's probably not the right jar.
It says professional on it.
Well, that leaves me out.
Every drain pipe in the house ultimately connects to the main 3-inch drain line that connects to the city sewer. That means that this 3-inch main will branch several times so that every fixture is reached. Now, not every fixture requires a 3-inch inlet, but the main line is all 3-inch. The entire drain system is gravity fed. This implies that every horizontal pipe is installed on a slope so that the water and the waste drains downhill out of the system.
Pots on the left, coals on the right. Is that still how it goes?
Building code and best practice dictate the slope or grade of each pipe. In some cases, close is all that's required. And in other cases, either a level or a tape is used to get the slope precise. I've been working with Phil for a long time, and he's a great plumber and a better friend. His brother Mike is a great friend also. But for today, right here, I'm going to leave a lot of the explaining of what you're watching up to him. The point of the video is not to teach you everything that you need to know to plumb a house, but to show you what the plumbing looks like, what goes into it, and some of the things to think about, and frankly, watch out for.
You mock up everybody, and you like the way it is. You can mark it, and then when you put it together, it won't be 180 off. See how the bubble just broke over the line? So that's level. We call that breaking the bubble. And that's going downhill. That's where the stuff goes, downhill. A little more grade on the clean out than regular, because the strippings, when you're playing in it, it'll go down faster. To the plumbing code, 45 degrees is the same as straight up and down. We're going to attempt to put a clean 45-degree hole through all this wood without butchering it and destroying the whole integrity of the building. We're going to start off, we mark the center of this here and here. We're going to bore in straight to start with. Then we're going to cock the drill motor this way and have somebody eyeballing this angle for me, or you step back and look at it and try not to ruin this whole house.
Just a comment about what Phil is doing here. Anytime you pick up a drill motor with this much torque and begin to drill a hole with a bit that is this big in a position that is this awkward, you better be careful. Get a good grip. These things can break your bones as easily as they tear out chunks of this Douglas fir. It sort of reminds me of putting a set of shoes on a strange horse. Now, you might get the job done without getting kicked, and you might not.
Little disclaimer, I had to buy this because my other one fell down, the real one I have. So I went and bought this thing, from Harbor Freight. It seems to be a pretty good thing, even if you only use it once. You always talk about no primer, but if you just slap glue on and stick it together real quick without it ever being able to react, I think that doesn't help. So even vent pipes need grade, just like the drain pipes. They got to have a 1/4 inch a foot going uphill. So we'll be putting a level on this, make sure it goes uphill. It's kind of another reason why we left this hole a little big, because I can move this up and down a hair to match grade. We'll get to that in a little bit. Okay. Oh, look at that. That's just like a miracle. Use a 2 9/16 drill bit for 2-inch pipe, and a pipe will fit through it just fine, but the stupid hub won't. So every time you need to get a hub real close, you gotta have gnawing out the wood a whole bunch. And if you used a larger bit that would take a hub, it blows the whole 2x4 out. It'd be just a decoration. So sometimes the wood whittling, pay attention to it so you don't destroy the integrity of the place. And see, I used a street 45 just to get it into the hole. Couldn't take a regular one and go in, it won't go without totally wiping out the wood. So anyway, that was our goal, motto achieved. Super time consuming just to get, you know, you could totally just blow a notch out of that and make it fit. And we kind of used to do that when I was a kid because we were all into production. Now, I feel like the house might fall down if I do that. In the old days, talk about wood butchery, we would notch this out heavily to get a long full length. Now I got to use a couple couplings, see, to get to here. And the more couplings you use, the more apprentice-like you look like. Okay, there's the sink and the vent.
99% of the work that Phil does on a day-to-day basis is service calls. Plumbing repair work, which is really a much different thing than what he's doing here for me on our house, which is entirely new construction.
Too bad I can't see. Like a 19 number right there. Yeah. I should go get the real deburring tool. This is a little cone thing, you go like this.
Now, since he spent so many years repairing plumbing systems and plumbing problems here in our area, I mean technical stuff, boilers and backflow devices and everything that can go wrong with plumbing, he has an extremely good understanding of the places that these systems often need repairs and the small things that can be done up front that will make the homeowner's life a lot easier decades from now when parts of the system will need maintenance. We'll give a detailed tour of the plumbing systems once all of the fixtures are in place.
Always like to talk about T's. T can never do that unless it's in a vent running air. Never be on his back. You can't run a T on his back, you guys.
What does the sand refer to in a sand T?
It's no sand involved. It's S-A-N.
Oh.
Sanitary. Sanitary T is for sanitary waste drain vent. So it's not for water pipe, it's for the icky water.
It's for drain.
It's for the cockapoogie water.
How's it different than a non-sand T?
Well, see how it's got a little swoop in it?
Yeah.
That's probably about it. Like a water pipe T is just straight.
Got it.
I didn't name these things. I wasn't involved. This is a street fitting where it pokes in. It's male and female. And I'm not sure if we're supposed to identify fittings that way anymore, but we are. No idea why they name a lot of things.
Phil keeps mentioning the glue because in the first video we put out with him, there were a good number of viewers who thought that it was unacceptable to not see a primer going down prior to the PVC glue. I'm bringing this up because you need to know that those viewers might be right in their area. But Phil has sat me down and made me read the instructions on the glue that he uses, and he is right. Primer is not required by the manufacturer or code here in Southern Oregon.
Might work.
Now this just illustrates that building codes and practices can vary greatly from state to state, and especially between regions. And I don't know all the reasons for this, but I do know that you ordinarily won't go far wrong by using the procedures and products that are common in your area.
Heck, that's not that far off. A little bit crooked there, but it saved us from putting a coupling here to make that straight to appease someone who can't see it. Do this. We'll do it the wrong way. Keep everything kind of tucked up. At least you can store junk you'll never find again back here. That's pretty darn close. That's perfect, and that's almost perfect. We're going to glue it. The problem with marking them is you got to always remember right when you pull them apart how to hang on to them, so they'll go back on the way you think. See, my glue covered up my line for a second. We're not going to glue this one yet because we need a special kind of glue for that. It's also kind of nice to be able to see if your vent's sticking way out the roof. You might have to cut it off. In an emergency, you can glue the stuff together with this. You're not supposed to. I don't recommend it. So we're not going to glue this one until I get the proper glue.
Liking this plastic more than the metal tape?
Too many people think it's a bad idea.
To use metal?
Yeah.
The rust?
No, it'll squeak if the pipe expands. There's some problem with it.
Does that actually happen?
No.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just wish we could all just get along. When your ladder slips and it takes your breath away, that's excitement in life. Okay. Now the kids can use this as a shelf when they make a fort. If you can hold that just for a second while I go get a strap, we'll be going crazy on this job.
Yeah. Under.
So I've lowered this elbow, hub and all, down into there to get this, to get enough fall. Look what I made. And then I force this, it'll be fine. We're moving right along at lightning speed, and sometimes it takes quite a while just to figure out how to get all this to work. There was options. We could have wet vented perhaps this lavy sink into the vent of the toilet, but it all has to be horizontal, vertical, and this is a horizontal, and there's not enough space in here to get a vertical action going to make a vent work. So if this pipe was 3-inch, and anyway, if it was plumbed differently, it'd be easy to wet vent certain situations, but not this one.
And just define wet vent one time.
Wet vent is when you're dumping like the drain of a sink into the vent of something else. So you can do that in situations. The vent needs to be increased in size to handle it, you know, and you can't do it all the time. And you can look up the code deals to find out exactly how accurate I am. All right, we're plumbing the master bathroom. We're going to talk about how to glue a bunch of fittings together in the right order so that you can glue them together. And sometimes that's a part of the puzzle that you start and get to the end and you find you can't even glue the thing together because you can't push the fittings together. First of all, coming out of the floor, we made another minor mistake where that hole was. Not really, because it's so hard to figure out what to do until you're there at the end. So this pipe coming straight up hits this line and this joist is in the way of it. So we had to offset it over. This offset from here to the toilet, where this is where the toilet comes down, and this is the trap arm for the toilet and the vent. And the toilet is a P-trap. That's why this is a trap arm. So the vent is keeping the toilet from sucking dry. It's serving that P-trap. This is all glued together, fitting to fitting, so it can't be any shorter than this. So I couldn't move it over even closer to get this offset to look good. The point of all this is now we've got this pipe that is so darn crooked. To get this offset over is my next challenge so it looks good. It can be a little bit crooked. 5 degrees per fitting is what the code mentions of offset coming out of a fitting. Looks like garbage, and my ADA brother will see this and make me change it somehow. So we're going to change it now before this happens. So all this is glued together as a mock-up, but it's not glued going up into the toilet, and that allows me to lift everything in and out to be able to glue it together. So the point is, thinking about how to glue it together is almost important. Otherwise, you have to throw away all these fittings when you figure out that you can't glue it together. Once again, this is the toilet coming down. This is the trap arm going into the drain, and this is the vent for the toilet. So if you're plumbing something on your own, mock up everything dry without gluing it first. Make sure that you can put it all together, because what happens is you can't, if this thing is crooked, you can't just take and change this. You have to change 50 bucks worth of junk to fix your mistake. Boy, does that smell good. Glue this one down. It's nice and square. The important one. I blew all the dirt out so I don't get dirt on my brush thingy, dauber. Sometimes people will glue stuff like that and call it good. And you see me always doing that. It lets the chemicals work into it a little bit because I don't use primer. Little twisty poo. If I let go, quantum physics will force it up. So you always hang on to it for a little bit. Alrighty then. I don't want to flip glue all over the vinyl brand new doors and the glass because it just irritates everybody. Just kind of bear in mind, have situational awareness in life. Try to teach that to my wife because she drives a car. Oh, good luck. There's a seam and there's the writing. Most of the time you glue a fitting one at a time, one end at a time. And when you glue a fitting all at once, it's just scary. I guess I'll mention something about glue. If your glue gels, throw it away. It's no good anymore. So you dab some glue on, and if it don't drip nice and thin, your glue's not too sporty. Don't get glue on the inside. Okay, stick this one on. Get this one to go on. Come on, honey.
Or something.
Why doesn't that want to go? Or maybe it did. Did it? Looks like it did.
Oh, there it goes.
There it goes. Anytime you glue something, you don't want stress on the glue joint. So this pipe is coming down at a drastic angle, and I don't want to glue it into the pipe and then warp it over and induce a stress on it. So the point of all this is you want to glue something where it's going to be strapped. You don't want to glue something and then warp it over and get a deflection in the joint of any sort. You'll get a leak maybe. So this is the last joint in that tree. Everything upstairs is glued. And this pipe, look up there, is glued at that angle, pointing at this. Naturally, it's relaxed, pointing that way. We're going to glue this pipe in there and strap it so it's coming out of this thing dead straight, so it's always relaxed. And we'll step back after we're done and you'll get a grip on what I'm trying to spit out. Sometimes having a lot of sawdust on the floor keeps your drips from sticking to anything, and they're easy to clean up. It's kind of like the restaurants where you eat peanuts. and you put all the peanut shells on the ground. I think it's all about how to clean up easier. Okay, here's another problem. I need to poke this up. Go ahead and beat on that, really. Okay, that's good. And give it another love daubing.
Down?
Down, but I have to go up on the ladder, I'll bet, to pry it around. To get it to go in. There it goes. Now, we've glued it in crooked. Put this wedge in here. So standing back, you see that the angle, it mismatched the holes, and there wasn't a pair of fittings that would correct it. So we're going to warp that pipe gently, but coming out of the fitting, it's dead square. It's not warped at the fitting. It's warped right in the middle of the pipe. We've already glued that 90 in there at a slight angle, so that was all glued and relaxed before we did that last. Does that make any sense at all? A lot of times what makes a plumber the prima donna by coming in first before everyone else is because the drain goes downhill. It has to go in a certain way, and if things are in its way, it causes trouble. So the air conditioning, the venting, the electricians, they're all after me because my stuff has to go where it has to go, and they can go around me. This situation, you can see that we have the two drain lines for these two lavies coming up in the floor. Scott put a giant beam under here because he's afraid his house would fall down, and I can't drill through a big old beam. So I brought it up in the floor and ran it over into the wall. In a trailer house, you'll see under the sink, the pipe just comes right up through the floor, takes up a whole bunch of the cabinet space, and we could have done it like that. But we're not building a trailer house here. So the bottom of the cabinet has a 4-inch step up in it. I don't know what they call that. So the bottom of the floor of the cabinet is 4 inches taller than the floor. So this will be under the cabinet. There might be a little tiny notch in it or something, but that way it appears that it's plumbed like a normal plumb job. The point of this conversation is sometimes you have to go where you have to go, and if there's structural problems that keep the piping from going where you got to go, you have to get inventive. Don't get glue on your camera.
It won't.
Comes up here. Other answer on this.
If you've watched much of our Spec House series at all, you've seen me framing this house using I-joists in the floor and in the roof systems everywhere. And I've talked about them a lot. Their strengths and their weaknesses and the important details that dictate exactly how they are to be used and worked with, like how far they can span, how they're to be blocked, and where and how big the holes can be drilled out for the plumbing and the other mechanical contracts that come as the house is being finished. Now you're watching Phil work his piping into the spaces that we built into the floor system over a year ago. And frankly, we were both pleasantly surprised, almost shocked, truth be told, when we realized that we had gotten it exactly right last summer, and all of the toilet flanges, the P-traps, the vent lines, everything fits into the opening that I slammed in here what today seems like a long, long time ago.
Every drain needs a trap, a P-trap. Some P-traps are under the kitchen sink or under the cabinet. These are up in the floor. So they're there forever. You don't play with them. The tub trap is here, and it'll be glued in solid and covered up. The toilet is its own trap itself. The toilet fixture is a P-trap. And it has its own vent off to the side. That's a vent fitting for it. To make it real Okay, Swiss cheese. 10 thousandths of clearance. The problem here is if I whip that through there, I want the sheetrockers not to hate my guts.
Yeah.
And that's fine. We did a test on the system when we roughed it in, and we had a long sewer balloon that long outside in the yard, and it would leak off a little bit, and every time we, waiting for the inspector, they want it full of water, and if it's leaked off, it's a bad deal. They make another type of balloon that goes into a tap tee, and we're going to install that right here so we can play with this test a lot simpler. I've never used this saw, so I don't even know if it cuts square or anything. The other problem is, when we open this dude up, the whole city of Roseburg's scent is going to envelop us. Yum! I'd like to clean that out, but I want to put my hands in there before lunch. Again, there's always trouble with gluing a fitting in when you can't pull it apart to get it to go together. So we unstrapped a whole bunch of straps behind us. To get us some wiggle room. And we'll glue just one end of this tee on. That way we only have to pull the pipe the width of this glue joint.
Looks like a different color glue than you've been using.
Oh, don't bring it up. There's primer in it. Okay, heave ho. A little more. Oh, there you go. Let her run. Okay, let's hold it together.
I did not do a good job with the camera, but that's okay. They'll get the point.
And boy, does that smell nice.
Yeah, right up in your face.
When you're done, you come and get the yellow part and take it home. And then you screw a plug back in. And screw that into a clean out outside. Put a hose bib in there and fill this whole thing with water and create our own personal water park. Whenever you use a pipe wrench, make sure the back of the jaw touches the pipe. Otherwise, as you go like this, if it was too tight, like that, you'll still grab it nice. What you do is you're egg shaping it. And sometimes you egg shape it and it makes it tighter in the fitting. So if you're trying to take something apart and you're egg shaping it, you're just a lot of diminishing returns going on. Now you're a professional.
You never really know how water tests like this will go, but the reality is there's probably going to be a couple of issues to clear up. So I usually plan for the worst and hope for the best. In our house, this time, Phil only had one leak, and it was something that must have happened while we were putting the siding or possibly the shear panel on. A nail got out into the 3-inch line coming up out of the foundation. In other words, this was not Phil's fault.
Yeah. Right during our final drain test, Phil's final drain test, we learned about that nail, which is in probably the absolute worst spot for a leak in the whole house, wouldn't you say? Could there be a worse spot?
Well, they're all bad, all spots.
Yeah. So we're halfway between the crawl space and the first floor.
So I sent Nate down, he sought out the bad one, there was a screw coming in here. And so we're just making up exactly what was there and trying to put it together downstairs. And I'm so glad Nate's doing that downstairs stuff because I'm so old.
You know, I think if we would have had these nail plates on the outside of our mud sill, that leak might not have happened. These are going to keep the drywallers from hitting the pipes when they're hanging the sheetrock on the inside of the wall. It's a lot easier to protect the pipes than it is to repair them. So don't be stingy about putting these things up. And maybe learn from our mistake here and think about putting them on your mud sill also, if there's a plumbing penetration that's coming up anywhere near the outside of the wall.
Every fixture has a drain, of course, and every fixture has a vent. The vent lets air in as the water passes through the pipe, but more importantly, the vent keeps the P-trap from siphoning out. Without the P-trap full of water, gases come through and smell up the house. So if you didn't have a vent, it would siphon the P-trap dry. That's the main reason there's vents in a house. All the vents from several fixtures hooked together up in the attic into one junction of fun and then exit. So you don't have to have a penetration through the roof for every single vent and every fixture because they can all tie together and leave out one hole.
Thanks for watching our series. If you have questions about this or anything else that you see here, please put them in the comments or send us an email. We'll try to address them in future episodes or perhaps in a podcast on our second channel, EC2. Thanks for watching and keep up the good work.